Let me now bring in our expert guest on the subject of the economy, the economic survey and the upcoming budget. We have Dr. Arvind Virmani with us. He's member Niti Aayog, which is India's policy think tank, and also a former chief economic advisor himself, apart from his many other roles in the past and even in the present. Good evening to you, Dr. Virmani. Thank you for coming on the show. How, according to you, has the economic survey set the stage for the presentation of the annual budget by the finance minister on Tuesday?
So I would point to, given that budget, from my side I cannot speculate, I would just highlight 4 issues which struck me, and readers or listeners can make whatever they want out of it. So the first one is, and they put it very nicely, so the first one is how to close the gap between education and employment. And the key to that, in my view, is skilling. The way I usually put it is that jobs and skills are 2 sides of the same coin. So you cannot have a job if there is no skilled person to fill it. That job, in effect, it becomes defunct. And similarly, if you have a skill which is not required by the job, that is useless because the job is not created. So closing this gap between education and employment means providing that intermediate or linking skill which helps connect the two. So that is one issue which I think is very important and which the survey talks about, of course in its own way. I have my own way of putting it. The second one I thought was interesting was this use of the word Mittelstand for SMEs or MSMEs. I think that's very important. And I think the economic survey brings out that given, what is the difference between an SME and a corporate organization? Corporate has all different types of people who run different aspects. But an SME has one owner who has to cover everything. So it's very important to him or her that the controls, regulations, etc. that they have to worry about is minimized, so they have time and mental space to look to how to increase the skills, the quality of production, and if it's export oriented, how to increase the export. So,
got it.
So the idea that of reducing controls, of course PM and others have talked a lot about it, but he brought that out. And the third one is, I'll just mention and then you can take whatever. The third one is state capabilities and capacities, and here the key issue is that there is a mentality of controls and regulation which arose in the socialist period right from 1950s, and we need to convert this into a helpful, that the objective is not just to control but to generate jobs and growth. So developing the capabilities of that. And finally the idea, I mean the way it brought in that agriculture is still important. I think this debate in the media about manufacturing versus services, I have always said, and the survey supports it, that we have 28 states. Each state is at a different level of development. So for us, there will be some states where agriculture is the key, another state where manufacturing is the key, and then third set of states for services. So this idea must come through to people that all sectors are important for a country as diverse as India. So that in brief is the overview. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what does it tell you about the state of the Indian economy in general, the macro picture, and the quest of the Modi government now in its third iteration to make India a developed nation by 2047?
Right. So the way I would put it, we've been through a very difficult period in the pandemic, and certainly all kinds of things got disrupted. Somebody focuses on one element of it, savings, or some people got unemployed, or so on. I think what the economic survey brings out is that if you look at the complete picture, we have now come out of that phase, and now at least in the last 2 years, even if we ignore that 9% big jump from a low of minus 5.8, the last 2 years clearly show that we are back on track. So the way the economic survey does it is by saying that pre-pandemic period the growth rate was 6.6% average, and now we are back to a kind of underlying or basic growth rate of at least 6.5 to 7%. And then of course it
That's
brings out a whole bunch of issues, whether it's employment and so on, financialization, etc., to show, to make it into a reality, or to show the people how it is true.
And in terms of the challenges of the future, you talked about how it is about employment and skilling, and there's also a fair bit about artificial intelligence as well, how that will pose a challenge, and the economic survey also suggests how it could be tackled.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is part of what I said about agricultural, manufacturing, services. Services is 50-something% of the economy, but we think of it as one unit, but they are low skilled services, medium services and high skilled. And what you are talking about, the high skill also is very important for certain states. So AI, quantum and all these things are important, but here I would only make the point that we have to be a little careful. You know, there are countries where the working age population is declining rapidly, like Russia, Japan, Germany and many other countries in Europe, and even in China it's going to decline rapidly from here on. So they are more concerned about things like robotics, but what we are more interested in, because our working age population share is going to rise, so our interest should be focused on AI and other such technologies which will enhance the skills and multiply them in a sense, allow people, and that's possible now, where low skilled people using AI can operate at middle skill level, and middle skilled people can operate at high skill level. So these things are all important, but we have to work out our own path in acquiring these and propagating them inside the country.
And do you think the economic survey has said enough about taxation? Because one of the big questions that any common person, especially salaried people, have in their minds is what's going to happen with their taxes, be it the direct taxes, the indirect taxes, of course, mostly out of the domain of the union budget, because it's all about GST and the GST Council decides that. But even on certain issues such as the price of petrol and diesel, people wonder what might the budget hold for them. So do you think that there is scope for the government to do something which will please the Aam Aadmi, or do you think that the government needs the money and additional money that it has made? In fact, it's improved its tax collections as well for the kind of plans that it has for India and the year when India celebrates 100 years of independence.
So as you know very well, you know, you mentioned I've been in many budgets. I cannot really speculate on the taxes, but I can make some broad points. So I think this government believes that simplification of taxes and you know, so tax reform basically doesn't mean reducing the average collection of taxes, but it means simplifying the structure so it's less costly for people to pay and evening it out. So it's not only a small set of people who pay high taxes, it is a more equitable and rational and simple system would benefit everybody, because the voluntary compliance goes up, the tax evasion goes down. So that is a general belief, and though I cannot speculate on what may be done, but we know what the issues are on the table. One of them is, for example, the direct tax code has been on the table for some time. I have myself written a big paper on GST reform. Tariff issues were raised in the last couple of budgets, inverted duty structure. So in principle all these are on the table and will benefit the people generally, but I am afraid I cannot speculate on the tax rates and
yes, it's best then to wait for 11 a.m. IST tomorrow, and we'll do that along with everyone else, Dr. Virmani, and perhaps talk again. Thank you so much for joining us and joining us about the economic survey for the moment, Dr. Arvind Virmani.